stuff to cover. Thank you guys for being here. And first, since I'm wearing the outfit, I cannot sail, but I'm a big supporter. Super excited about this past week with American Magic, the $8.5 million from Triumph and the $3.9 million Governor DeSantis' Job Growth Grant Fund. In essence, that means we're ready to go. And there's just been a lot. So many people really over the years remember this. Their presence here dates back to 2018, and a lot of folks at Pensacola Yacht Club were involved in attracting them here in the first place. It's been their seasonal practice area basically until this point. But with this addition to the Port of Pensacola at Warehouse 10, this will now be their permanent home, not only for sailing year round, but also for boat building, manufacturing, and really taking it to another level, not just practicing here, but truly having 150 people and their families call this place home permanently. So huge win for us, and something we've been working on since the first day I was in here. I was joking on the radio today. It seemed abrupt on the other side of the glass, but it's something that I know Erica, the port, Amy Miller, myself, and pretty much everyone at the city that's played some kind of role in this. This is something we've been talking about every day since I've been here. So it's been one of those things that's been really about 5-6 months in the making. And you guys may remember, we'd kind of parsed out that larger discussion about the port Triumph ask, and we did it for this exact reason. We knew that this was a winner. This was something that we could get across the line, and that time is of the essence. Understand our goal here is to get this project, at least the building portion of this project, completed by fall of 2024. So when American Magic returns home, hopefully with the cup in hand, but when they return home, that they come into their permanent home, their permanent facility. So that will take precedent. And then, of course, the other things, the dock and other things, absolutely want to get those done with some urgency as well. But the number one focus now is on getting that building completed. I was able to meet Clark, Erica, myself. We were able to meet with Terry Hutchinson, the skipper, and Tyson Lamont, the COO of American Magic, yesterday, actually right before the governor announced the $3.9 million. But since they're packed up and heading off to Barcelona as a team now, we wanted to meet with them and get as many things figured out as we can. So they're very, very excited. I know their team is. We are very excited. They've been a great addition seasonally, and now I think it's amazing that we're going to have all these great people calling Pensacola home. And really, cities look for opportunities to plant flags on all sorts of issues. Whether it's a certain job sector that they try to create, and to be able to say that the city of Pensacola could be the home of sailing in the United States of America those are, as I've said this whole time, opportunities that do not come along very often. These are generational type opportunities. So very, very excited. Hence my uniform today. The airport runway lighting update, I want to give that real quick. If we get into some technicals on question during the Q&A, Ken Eybold, our deputy airport director, is here to answer some of that. But we'd started having some lighting issues on the east-west runway, which is referred to 826, as you've seen, at 10 p.m. on Sunday night. We realized there were some issues. So by 1 a.m. Monday morning, we noticed we discovered an electrical fire, and it had been contained to the underground duct, so there was no fire service or anything like that needed. But obviously that caused some issues that needed to be assessed and repaired. So from basically that point, from 1 a.m. Monday until really about 4 o'clock yesterday when we had sent that release out, we've been in full bore, assessment and repair. And not only our maintenance crew, but also we contracted someone from outside to give us some extra manpower to get it fixed. There was a hope to get it fixed yesterday. Obviously that didn't take place. And the second that we knew that wouldn't happen, we sent the release out to you guys. So there were 6 flight cancellations last night. 2 of those were not related to the lighting issue. And understand that, flight cancellations are decisions made by the individual airline. So where we are today, obviously full bore with urgency, trying to get 826 and the lights up and going. We feel pretty, I would say we're reasonably confident that we can get that done, but we'll continue to update you, of course. But there's two parts to understand to this. One is the runway, and also there's some lighting issues with the taxiway. Now, the primary concern is the runway, because that's going to be something that's going to shut down service pretty much regardless. Now, if we are able to get the runway lights up today, but not the taxiway lights, then that starts to become preference of each individual carrier. So it could be that one carrier is okay with their pilot, if the taxi lights aren't all fully operational, taxiing out to the runway, and then another carrier may not want to do that. So all I'd say is anybody that that has a flight, that's coming up that would be in the evening hours tonight, to make sure that that they stay on top of any reports that we have. We'll tell you guys as soon as we know something, and that the airport's website is the most real-time flight cancellation update module we have here at the city. So we refer you to the City of Pensacola's airport's website and Pensacola International Airport website to get the up-to-date information. So again, any other technical questions you guys have on that, either myself or Ken will take care of those. Great meeting with Dr. Savage. Really excited about the potential of some more alignment in terms of reducing homelessness. I thought between the three meetings, of course I was at the first joint meeting, and I'm very appreciative to him and the interdepartmental agency on homelessness for investing that much time and energy into our community. This is a nationwide problem, so we are not the only one in it. So I'm very grateful for Dr. Savage to have spent the time and commitment and to present 3 times and whatever that is, 36 hours that we asked him to. And I think there's a lot of exciting things to talk about, not only just tactics to reduce homelessness, but the conversation's begun about what does the COC look like moving forward, and start having some of those conversations. I think all these different services, including Opening Doors as our current COC, have done a noble job in trying to reduce homelessness. Everybody is in it for the right reason, but how do we put our best foot forward as a community? And so I think that's going to be, I'm really grateful to not only Opening Doors, but to our other services to say, hey, is there something we can do better? And so I'm really excited and interested to hear how that moves forward. And we will continue, with our remaining ARPA dollars, we will continue with urgency to try to figure out exactly what that alignment is. And so I know there's still some meetings amongst some of the services, and they're going to kind of continue to flesh that out. But that's something that I really don't want to put on the back burner. We talked about Dr. Savage creating critical mass. Well, with that means you got to have some urgency with it too. We can't just let it lay in wait for months at a time and hope that something's going to change. So this is a all hands on deck solution. So it's not just the city, but I know at the city, I can speak to the fact that we'll continue to be urgent about making sure we're moving the needle. The Palafox Market at Plaza Ferdinand, another great win. I wasn't able to get out of the car, but I was able to. I couldn't help myself. I wanted to swing around Plaza Ferdinand and see how it was going, and not only from my own eyes of seeing how busy it was right around 11 o'clock on Saturday, but I actually received several texts from business owners downtown about their sales and how improved they were this weekend, because you had all those people walking between north and south. So, you have an idea and you hope it works. And so it's only been 1 week, and always you're going to have a big crowd on the first week, but that was a good indicator to see that was the hope, not only to help cultivate some of these small businesses that didn't have an opportunity to be at Palafox Market, but also the hope was that the walking between north and south was going to help the current brick and mortar businesses as well. And just the small sample size of folks reaching out to me and reaching out to us over the weekend, talking about how great that was, is really encouraging. So I'm glad to hear that. All right, the CRA, the DIB affordable housing thing that you saw on Monday, I had a meeting with Walker Wilson yesterday afternoon, and we will start to pursue. It seems that the appetite of the CRA board is to take that $100,000 that had been held back out of the 2 mills collected for in the DIB, and move that back into the DIB. So just understand the mechanism of that is that the city had a holdback of $100,000 of the 2 mills tax that has been collected for the Downtown Improvement Board. So we had proposed, CRA had proposed to change that instead of it just being for affordable housing, which is very, very difficult. Those dollars have to be spent not just in the urban core CRA, but even smaller footprint than that, which is within the DIB boundary. Kind of difficult for $100,000 a year to make any real impact in affordable housing, and it specifically be in that area. We got a lot of irons in the fire on multi-million-dollar potential projects in affordable housing around the city. So we had attempted to say, hey, well, should we figure out a way to use more dollars on more things other than just affordable housing? Should we look at public safety, cleanliness, things like that in the DIB? And we proposed that, and the CRA board ultimately was saying, well, why are we keeping the $100,000 at all? This is tax that's collected for the DIB. Should the city be holding back that money at all? So we've started to have that conversation. My opinion is that the $264,000 that remains in the account from the previous agreement is something that I think makes sense for the city to keep. I mean, that was the agreement. What I hope is that the CRA board will now entertain that the $264,000 that we have already collected, that we keep and open the ability for cleanliness, public safety as proposed. But then from this point forward, the $100,000 holdback, just having that sent back to the DIB. So we don't have a CRA meeting for a little bit, but that I believe is what we'll come back with in terms of the affordable housing piece. The skate park, we have been talking all week internally about how we've really defined it as some short-term solutions and some long-term solutions. What I'll tell you is, I'll start with the long-term. I'm going to entertain the idea of having an operator at the skate park, and that is not uncommon for cities. It's not uncommon for the city of Pensacola. We have operators at Roger Scott Tennis Center, for example, and other places. The YMCA with the pool and things like that. That is, I want to be clear, that does not mean that the goal would be that we would be charging for access or charging for admission. But at the end of the day, I really think the long-term value of the park is for us to help cultivate our youth and let them get lessons and really rent helmets, rent skateboards, all those things that an operator would be able to bring that probably the city's not equipped to do. So that's going to take time. Obviously, we would RFP that out and all that. That's not something that's going to change next month. But we're going to take a serious look at that. And I just think that the skate park has a better opportunity to be successful and to be maintained the way it needs to be, to make sure that the rules are being enforced. Someone's got to be there. And that's a significant expense, of course, for us. And so that is something that we're going to probably entertain in the long term is to put that out there and see what kind of interest we have in having an actual operator running the skate park. But in the short term, what I'd say is we're going to finalize. We've gotten some feedback up until yesterday afternoon. We'll get a finalized list out to you this week. I am entertaining the idea of extending the hours to 10 p.m. The lights are on, people are there, and it certainly is not a noise issue because it's under an interstate. So if you ever try to speak at one of these microphones under there, it's there's plenty of noise down there. I don't think that's going to be the concern. Obviously, it's lit well enough, as we've seen. So that's an example of some of the short-term things. We might go ahead and do that. We might put on some temporary security after the close time. So I don't have all of that exactly rolled out yet, but we're getting pretty close on that conversation. So, but at some point this week, we will have at least a little bulleted list of quick changes that we're going to make to try to improve the experience. And I try to keep all the skate park things in context. Understand, our phones are not ringing off the hook at PPD with complaints, about this. It's just new. And they're, on one hand, you have skateboarders who want to use it and they want to use it for the maximum amount of time. And rules may not be rules that they want to adhere to. Completely understandable. And then the flip side of that is there's parking and there's, lights on and as the council president mentioned is, if there's people with drug use or have glass bottles out there and there's safety issues, then that's an understandable concern as well. So, we're trying to do the impossible, certainly, which is make everybody happy. But I don't know that we can do that, but we'll get as close as we can. And certainly we could have done a better job of setting expectations in terms of what those rules are. So we are where we are, and as I said, we'll focus on a few different short-term things to help bridge that gap between the two, and then we'll look at potential private operation long-term. The Hawkshaw cleanup is underway. I mentioned to you last week. I actually drove by there taking Caroline to school this morning, and some of the Phragmites are already down on the easternmost side where you get some more sight line and clarity in there. And I believe nothing has changed on that schedule. All of that should be done by the end of this week, by the 19th. So, but I know they're out there right now as we speak, making progress. Operation Brownsville, we've got this last week, May 7 to 13, we had 24 code enforcement cases. It was up from 9 the previous week. We had 9 arrests made, 259 calls for service in that area, and 259 up from 249, and then 44 offense reports up from 28, including a vehicle burglary, a residential burglary, and a theft. I also know our police department and our fire department are going to be out walking the neighborhood together this week, looking for improvements. I know we had been part of that from this past week was finding some streets where we had street lights out, and we've already started moving. That's one of those things we may not have noticed as quickly if we weren't doing. And I know we started to have conversations with FPL and make sure that we see if we can get that street lit up. So that's some of the things with Brownsville. I promise I'm almost done. Malcolm Young Gym, we are meeting internally today, and we have a meeting scheduled with Lighthouse on Thursday. So we should have an update for you. As I continue to maintain our goal, out of respect for the leaseholder, we want to have a conversation with them before we decide, make any decisions on what the future of that building and that lease is. We want to make sure that we, certainly can try to accommodate and help them through this next school year. So we're going to go through all that with them, and more to come by Friday. And worst case, when I talk to you guys next week, we'll have a full update, but probably before that. The Maritime Park Marina opening is Thursday, May 25th at 3:00. So the marina itself will actually open at 6 a.m. on the 25th. So, boats can be there that morning if they want, but the official ceremony will be at 3:00. And just as a reminder, this is a free marina, and it's day use only. So it's not for overnight. There will be a gate that will be open and closed at for the hours. The summer hours will be open at 6 a.m., closed at 10 p.m. And then we'll change those hours. We'll shorten them a little bit once we get past daylight savings time into the fall. But very, very excited to get that open. And it's been ready actually for a few weeks, and credit to our team. And it's kind of funny. I say it every time we have one of our meetings about this day's marina. It feels like half the departments are in this meeting, because one way or another, between police, public works, parks and rec, the port, you start rattling off how many legal, our office, there's a lot of different folks that have some part or some role to play in this day use marina and making sure that it's enforced correctly. It will be under a port tariff, and that was a change that, even though it was physically ready to open, and our public works team did a great job, yet another under budget and on time project. So that was good, but we delayed it, self-inflicted, to make sure that we had all of these things in order. So it's going to be operated under the port tariff. Parking enforcement will be enforcing, making sure that when they close up at night, that we'd be writing tickets for boats that are still remain there. All the rules will be posted, of course, when you come on and off. And ultimately, that was part of the contract, or part of the agreement with Fish and Wildlife, was for it to be day use and for it to be free. And there's the limitations of the overnight, not only in that agreement, but with the Army Corps of Engineers. It's not currently permitted for overnight use. So really, it's a moot point, even if we wanted to consider that. So, but anyway, I feel really good about where we are. And again, a big credit to all those different departments that have had to play some kind of role in this. And so we'll get all those details out to everybody, but certainly appreciate you guys sharing when it'll be open, and we'll get that whole list of rules and everything out to you. A couple other quick ones. Bayou Tahar boat ramp. One dock has been replaced. That's the one on East Pensacola Heights over there, right when you cross the Bayou Tahar Bridge. One dock has been replaced, and the second one is being demolished this week, and that should be done by June 2023. So those have been out there lingering for a while. So we are well on our way, and we do have one dock replaced there. The Hunter Pool, our goal was to get the pool open by Memorial Day. It sounds like that is what we're going to do. Now the pool house itself may not be completed, but the pool will be open. Obviously that's a big weekend and kids out of school. So that was a priority. And then those final touches on the pool house will be completed, and then we'll have an event when we get the pool house completed in June. So, but just to get the word out as well that the pool itself, kids will be able to get in there by Memorial Day weekend, and then we'll finish out the pool house. Tonight, 6:30, there's a workshop on Summit Boulevard. If you guys recall, we've done some preliminary studies on the 4 lanes of Summit and what the need and desire there is. I set expectations always and say that this really truly is a brainstorming workshop with the community. We don't have money set aside for any kind of change at this point. But we do have some data. We want to share it with the neighborhood, and we want to hear from them. What do you want? What are your concerns? Do you want a bike lane or do you not? Do you want to, what happens if this went to 2 lane? Do we want parking on the side? So obviously it's a 4-lane divided road that when you move east goes into a pretty built out environment. When you think about Spanish Trails, Scenic Highway, there's not a lot of expansive parcels of land that would, cause any additional growth. We probably have what we would have in terms of that corridor, especially on the east side. So, but we are very, very early staged with this, but we're going to have maps out there, and Caitlin and all our public works team will be there to get feedback from everybody. And so the reason we're doing it now is we have feedback to share. We've got data to share. We want to share that early with the community, and then see what their desires are, what their concerns are, and make sure we didn't just collect data just to do it. We wanted to get it back out to the folks who paid for it and say, hey, here's where we are, and let us know where we should be going. Last thing, Town Hall, June 6th is District 4 with Jared Moore, and that's going to be at Bayview Community Center. And that's Tuesday, June 6th at 5:30. So it'll be our 4th Town Hall this year. And with that long first report, I'll take any questions you have.
A few on American Magic.
Yeah.
Let's start with the jobs, because that's impressive. 170 jobs with an average salary of 105-ish. I'm afraid my whole team is going to quit. But when we talk about 150 people coming here with their families, the question would be, how many of these jobs are going to be available for new people here in Northwest Florida? How many are going to be taken, if you will, by current crew? And also, how many are temporary construction jobs? I mean, we really look at the jobs, especially the high-paying jobs for locals. What's that picture going to look like? Yeah.
So first, what I'd say is, as you can imagine, they have 150 to 170 people employed right now. So, but I think the value for the community is in the long-term approach. If this is their permanent home, well, when someone changes jobs or moves out, then where is the first place that they're going to look? And so that's number one. Number two is, moving 170 families here. I mean, you think about the positive impact that's going to have on, be it our schools, be it, spending money and that's money that was not otherwise spent here, that's now going to be spent here. So, at the end of the day, these are very, very technical jobs, and just like any business that would move here, I'm sure their first preference with job openings is going to be folks that they aren't going to have to relocate. But what's really exciting about this is it's not just sailing. I mean, those jobs, and the reason the salary is the highest that Triumph's had in front of them is because there's a lot of advanced manufacturing and advanced manufacturing opportunities. They've already reached out to the UWF College of Engineering about building that relationship, that once they're here that you start working with students. So there's that kind of cultivation opportunity. I know they've already been working with IHMC. So, I think the web is going to get bigger and bigger once they're here full time. In terms of when they get back here, boots on the ground, I'm sure they're already going to have, their 170 employees now. But all those employees are now going to be Pensacola residents, spending their money here, inviting their families to come visit them here. And that's what's really exciting about this project is the people, not just the organizers, but the people who work here love this place. I mean, they really do. Same way they can't get me to stop talking about American Magic, we can't get them to stop talking about Pensacola, that how much they enjoy it and how welcome they are. And so I'm really excited for the future of this. And I think, we've got to let them get here and let's start to cultivate that ability to have our local workers making sure that they'll have opportunities for these jobs. But we'll be aligned in that approach because I feel like, this is their home. So they're going to want to be able to support people who already live here and make it easier to fill those positions.
And then along the lines of us being on the world stage in a way that we haven't before, no doubt. You were on our 11 o'clock show, I believe, before when what if we take the cup? What if we do get to say, hey, 4 more years, we'll just do it right here in Pensacola. What kind of infrastructure would that really take to host a world-class event like that? How much is in place and how would we get that done?
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of a running joke. We're not allowed to speculate with American Magic anything otherwise than them taking the cup and bringing it home. We don't, we're cheering them on. And I was joking with someone today. I said, the city of Pensacola's chances to host an America's Cup one day went from a 1 in a trillion to about 1 in 4, in the last week or so. And they mean it when they say that their intent would be to host it here. And there's a lot of reasons for that. They're midstream and moving 170 families for only a year and all the children into new schools in Barcelona. It's quite an undertaking to move all your team. Number two, they're going to be so familiar with this water. They've been on it for a decade by that point. So they'd have a competitive advantage. They'd be in their home. All their folks would be sleeping in their own beds with their own families, while all the other teams around the world would have to be here for an extended period of time. So, it's a big event, and certainly, no doubt about it, there'd be some infrastructure needs. But what they'll tell you, and certainly they know better than I do, but what they'll tell you is one nice thing about the geography here is we actually kind of have a natural amphitheater to watch. Other places isn't necessarily that way. It might be out, where there's nothing on the other side. But, they always talk about that example of, everyone lined up on the 3 Mile Bridge and the pedestrian, you'd be able to watch it truly, right in front of us around, land and really have that amphitheater type setting. So, it would be the biggest event no doubt about it, the largest event that this city's ever seen if we could, have them win it. So we are rooting them on. So we'll have a lot to do the day after they win the cup. I can guarantee you that. Hopefully I'd be over there cheering them on and then probably on a plane the next morning back here to try to figure out how we can pull this thing off. So lots of coordination that goes into that. But we do have, I think in their estimation, we've got the land to be able to put in some of that infrastructure, and we do have a good natural setting for it to take off. So even though we may have some additional challenges that the larger cities may not have, what they've described is we have a lot of additional advantages that San Francisco or Barcelona, with some of their issues in terms of land, in terms of other things that they need to put on something like that, that we would have. So very, very excited about that possibility. I don't try to put any more pressure on them than they already have, but it would be the biggest event that the city's ever hosted if we could get them to pull it out next fall. So very, very excited for that.
So just want to follow up on that real quick, because when I've talked to American Magic, they've always kind of been hesitant to say that. So you're saying they're saying if they win, they do want to bring it to Pensacola?
Well, look, there's they haven't signed a contract that said that they would do it. Obviously, I'm sure there'd be a lot of conversation about what the logistics would be and what infrastructure we have in place and all those kinds of things. But what I'd tell you is I think their intent would be to move it here. Yeah, and as we said, I think that's something that's very, very exciting for us, and that is secondary to why they're here. We're certainly not doing everything that we're doing for this to be their permanent headquarters solely because of that. But certainly that would be an amazing secondary benefit, and again, transformative for our community to have teams from all over the world and families from all over the world here for a year and a half. And and there's a lot of other events and things that happen in and around that are prior to. So I mean, it's way too early to speculate on exactly what would or wouldn't happen. But the important part is they have it very they have a lot of interest and intent that's something that they would want to do. But lots of things to work through, and it'll be a great problem to have. The day after, like I said, I'll be in my office bright and early figuring out how to host an America's Cup. If that's a problem I've got, I'm looking forward to it.
Just a follow up to both those questions. We've got now $12 million that we're going to be putting into Warehouse 10. Mm-hmm. What kind of assurances do we have from American Magic that they will relocate?
Yeah, so that part of the meeting that we had yesterday is working through some of those details. What I can tell you now philosophically, the good news is we're actually in alignment with American Magic on wanting to be here long term. So there's not a debate of them wanting to be here a shorter amount of time versus us a longer amount of time. So that's good. I mean, that's that we're both committed to a long term solution here. So our first intent, we'll get an MOU done, completed. And that's only because we could go right to a lease right now, but the time and complexity that takes. So we'll get that MOU done. Just so, we've got something on paper certainly before we're accepting dollars formally. But we feel we've been in conversations with them for a long time. We feel very confident that is their intent. But as I said, we're not going to accept Triumph dollars or anything like that until all of those details are ironed out.
Are they going to be participating in the design and engineering component, making recommendations?
So they'll be a part of that. At the end of the day, that will be run through the Port of Pensacola and the City of Pensacola, improvements to our building. It'll go through those processes. And remember, there's additional processes to Triumph, in terms of how it's got to be bid. There's a lot of that. So the project will be managed on our side. But of course, I mean, we got to make sure it's a building that works for them. So, we've talked about conversations of their ability to have input, or if there's a selection, finalists or things like that for engineering and design, that they would have the ability. I mean, we'd be foolish not to allow that, and they'd be foolish not to be part of that. And so we want to, we're doing this to make sure that it's something that's great for the port, but is great for the tenant. And so, I imagine that they're going to entertain some kind of idea of having, boots on the ground here every day, that they may have some kind of project manager on their side that wakes up every day working with us on the project. So that was the start of some of those general conversations that we had yesterday with their leadership, is to kind of iron all that out. But, I left that meeting, I know Erica and Clark did, feeling very, very good. They felt very, very good about exactly where we are. So, as I said, we're going to start putting a procurement package, together, and start to get all of our information together in terms of the engineering and design. And of course, we've got some additional legwork to do with closing out Triumph. Erica's going to be working on that. And of course, the DEO Job Growth Grant Fund, we still have some paperwork to get through there. But as I mentioned to you, the great news is that the grant fund money, the DEO money, is this year's budget. So that means that's that much faster. We're not waiting until July 1st to do something. It's money in this year's budget. So
just one more follow-up.
Yeah.
With the Triumph money, is that going to be tied to getting an MOU with American Magic?
I don't think so. It's really just more so. I mean, we could go to a lease, right now if we wanted to just take that step. But I think our goal was for not just for our comfort, but for their comfort. We want to kind of say, here's what we expect. Here's how long we want you here. Here's how long they're comfortable with. So it's really just more so, instead of waiting a few more months and getting further down the road, we wanted to create that level of comfort for our folks, for our port, and as well as for them, that, we don't have wild, deltas between expectations. So that we're self-inflicting this MOU to just so we're all feeling comfortable when we set expectations for each other.
And I kind of had a similar question to Rick as far as the Triumph grants.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the other Triumph grants are structured with jobs, bringing those jobs and having a clawback if the grantee doesn't award those jobs. And obviously, the history of America's Cup is full of all kinds of stories about teams dissolving after a competition and all that stuff. So what kind of level, what is the terms of the Triumph grant going to be, and are they going to be tied to that 150 jobs?
Well, how the Triumph grant works is those clawbacks are an agreement between Triumph and the city, not necessarily with the tenant, right? So that's how that will be structured. But having something in the lease or having a side agreement between the city and American Magic is also pretty customary to say, hey, here are some things that we're concerned about. I've shared that with American Magic that, certainly, you always want to be prepared for any worst case scenarios, any blind spots. As confident as I am in the backing and their support and meeting with their ownership and the folks financing it, that I feel very, very good. Nonetheless, it's our job to make sure the taxpayer is protected and all that. And so we don't have final details on that, but our expectation is we would have some kind of language, be it within the port lease or as a side agreement that says, hey, if something changes drastically that's unexpected, this is what you're obligated to. This is what we're obligated to. So no exact details on what that agreement's going to be, but American Magic is aware that that's something that we would like to entertain. All right.
On the airport, I guess, do you have any more information about what caused the electrical fire? And also, you said 6 flights were canceled. Is there any number on how many flights were delayed because of it?
I can have Ken come up and answer the second question because I don't know that. I have not heard. I just talked with Ken a minute ago. I have not heard of that. We know exactly what caused it, but certainly I'll just let Ken answer that, and he can correct me if I'm wrong.
So the infrastructure there at the airport is decades old. And if you've ever owned an old house or driven an old car, you know that over time, electrical insulation can shrink and crack. These are 240 volt circuits. And so when they arc, the temperatures get very high. That appears to be what happened. We have been focusing more on fixing the problem temporarily, and then we'll deconstruct exactly what happened. But that appears to be what has happened to this point. With respect to the delays and cancellations, it's kind of a little bit of a moving target. As the mayor said, we had 6 cancellations last night. 2 of them were not related to the lights. We had 2 this morning that were listed as cancellations. They were supposed to take off before dawn. They did end up taking off 8:30, 9:30 timeframe today.
This is the east and west runways?
Correct, the east-west runway.
What about the north and south?
That one's currently closed for construction. And so because it was closed, we have not assessed any potential damage to the wiring to that runway because the goal is to let's get the east-west runway up and then we'll look at the damage on the north-south.
With that, they're going to look into maybe the north and south and see if there's any maybe damage to the wiring, for the lights.
Yeah, because of the location of where the fire was, it's a place where a lot of circuits were all passing through that duct bank. The construction on the north-south runway was scheduled to be done in the next couple of weeks anyway. So once we get the east-west runway operational, then we're going to take a step back and say exactly what's the extent of the damage, and then we'll prioritize things at that point.
Also, how does it affect UPS and other carriers like that?
Well, the north-south runway has been closed for about a month anyway because of the construction. So everybody's been working off the east-west runway. So the impacts to the airlines, to UPS, is really driven, as the mayor said, by company policy on how what their limitations are in terms of the infrastructure that is there versus what is not there. There have been some. We did have one cancellation that was a company that just did not want to operate in the dark. That's their prerogative because they're the ones that at the end of the day, the airlines on the commercial air carrier side or the pilots on the private side, they're the ones in charge. We don't tell them, you can't land. They say, I don't want to land. So that's what we're faced with.
But they're working on the problem now today, diligently to get it repaired?
We have our maintenance crew, our operations crew, and an outside contractor that are currently working on it, and we're pretty confident that we'll get the runway lights back up. Hopeful, but somewhat less confident that the taxiway lights, the parallel taxiway for that east-west runway will be up by the end of the day, and that should be sufficient to allow operations to continue. That's going to be temporary rerouting of power. So once that's in place, then we can start to look at what the permanent fix is going to be.
And just a quick follow-up is how often is the infrastructure inspected regularly? How often does that happen, if at all?
Well, these are underground electrical lines, so it's a little difficult to you can't like climb through there and do visual inspections. We do inspections that are essentially monitoring the electrical conductivity of the wires from this access point to that access point. We do that as part of our ongoing maintenance and inspection program. Just an incident where a short circuit happened, and short circuits happen.
And not to get too bogged down in the numbers, but just so we're on the same page, what I thought I heard y'all saying was that essentially 4 flights last night were canceled because of this specific problem. 6 were canceled in total last night, but 2 of them had nothing to do with this problem. Is that correct?
Correct. And then
so 2. Is it correct to say that 4 flights were canceled last night because of the lights?
Because of the lights, yes.
Don't want to say it wrong,
Right.
And then this morning, I think I heard you say that 2 were essentially delayed, right? They ended up going. It was just hours later. So would you call that a delay or a cancellation?
It is my understanding that they were called cancellations initially, but that they were essentially that the flight has happened. Now, whether the airline is calling it a cancellation or a delay, that's up to the airlines.
Got it. And the last thing, I'm so sorry, but you said there was a freight carrier separately that had decided not to use 186?
It was not a freight carrier. It was actually a medevac flight, and the patient involved was not critical. They were trying to get him out, but they ended up taking him back to the hospital.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Ken. And just one other, in case it's speculated, was if there was conversation about could you get the north-south runway back up instead of east-west, as you guys can probably surmise that the amount of time that it's going to take us to get the east-west runway, considering north-south is under construction, that wasn't necessarily something entertained, just in case that question comes up. There wasn't a scenario that would have made more sense for us to somehow, if it was even possible, to scramble up north and south in relation to east and west. And as you know, considering that our fingers crossed have this thing open tonight, that obviously was the prudent way to go. So just in case, as I said, that comes up. Anything else? All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it.